All right, so we might as well get started. I know Flower had signed up for this one as well, but I'm not sure if she's going to make it. So here we go. So today's session is on VEX GO. And the great news is we have some more information about the competitions. They released a little bit more, so we can learn more about that. So here we go. So I'm sure by now you know who all of us are on the team. You've seen this slide as many times as I have. And same with this one, all the amazing products that we have. So today's agenda, we're going to talk a little bit about robotics, and then we're going to dive into VEX GO. We're going to talk about the classroom bundles. We're not going to spend a lot of time on the STEM labs because we've gone through those already. We're going to talk about the resources, but we're also actually going to dive right into the kits because I do actually have the kits here and show you how easy they are to work with. So here we go. So why do we teach robotics at a young age? And we all know that students perceive and form a perception of different subjects at a younger and younger age. So getting students involved in robotics and STEM at a younger age just makes it a lot easier for them to think it's cool and fun. Fun fact, our brains are 68% more active when we're having fun. And as teachers, you know that. If you've got a classroom where you're doing something fun, it's a lot easier. The kids are a lot more engaged. And when they're engaged, they're using their brains and they're learning. Again, we focus on this, and this is a slide that I put in every presentation because this is also a great way when you're looking for funding. I know that's a subject for a lot of educators is how do I get funding? And when you explain that robotics is more than just gears and batteries and motors, and that it's actually all about 21st century skills, a lot of the times that helps, especially the administrators, understand that this is something that they need to fund. So by now, you know these products just as well as I do. We've got all the different variety. So let's dive right in. So we're going to talk about the VEX GO. And once again, this is designed to have students do lesson plans in as little as 40 minutes. So I know in your cases, this was really important because you're looking at trying to expand your robotics program. You already run an after-school program. So this is something you can bring into the classes and they can do it in small bits. So you could actually use this for recruitment, to get students engaged, etc. Now, yep, go ahead.
Thank you. I have a question. So I am trying to, write the words for grants. And it's my first time doing so. So it has been challenging since I don't have the words, but I know all of our teachers do STEM, right? Where they incorporate, they apply what they've learned in various things. But what would the argument be for, we can say, well, we do STEM, like why robotics STEM?
Number one, I would say engagement. So it's proven that robotics is fun. So it really adds to the engagement versus some of the other programs. And in your case, I would really emphasize, if I'm correct, you're the school that has so many students apply that you have to actually turn them down. So putting that in and saying we need funding because we've got the engagement, the students want to do the robotics and we don't have the availability for them. So when I was fundraising for my robotics team, because I didn't have any funding when we started, my pitch was that we need the robot kits and we need the parts so that the students can get engaged. And once they start to understand that the money you're spending is going to be spent on robotics kits that are hands-on that the students can work with, now you're providing a solution. So you've already got the students, now you need the solution. Again, if you're putting through grants, it's great to talk about the bundles and the fact that they can be moved from classroom to classroom. They're stored really well. So they understand this isn't something that's going to get put in a classroom and used once, that it can be moved from classroom to classroom. And you can do fun days as well. I know a lot of schools or organizations, one of the things that we did is we would involve the community. So I ran a community team. So what we would do is whenever the city had a day where they were putting on something, they would always invite us out and ask us to bring something interactive and fun. And we would show up with something really simple where anybody off the street could come in, drive the robots around and have fun. So that's something you can do in your school as well, where you could even have something for, you know, the kindergartens to grade 3s where they get to come around and see what's going on. I have a school that does VEX IQ, and what he did to get his funding is he was a grade 8 teacher. And what he did is he had his students build robots, and they had a classroom pack. They were fortunate. So they had 12 robots, and they actually set up a robot Olympics in the gym that every single student in their school came through by class and got to participate and got to drive a robot and try different things. So again, it was about his students showcasing what they've learned, but at the same time, introducing the entire school to robotics. And once he did that, all of a sudden, he went from, well, there's no money to what can we get you? So it's really just, you know, it's really hard in the beginning. And then once you get it rolling and can get your administration to see the power of it and how engaging it is, and that's what it's really about. It's about engagement. So if they can see, you know, class after class coming in and getting excited about it, then it becomes a much easier pitch. Once again, color-coded storage containers. And I will show you these live in a little bit. So everything's color-coded, which means fantastic for organization. And with all the bundles, you do get the extra case of spare parts. So especially now that you're doing VEX IQ, you understand that parts do get lost. The VEX stuff doesn't usually break, so that's a good thing about it. But having that extra bit of parts definitely does help. It also comes with an extra pin tool. I don't know if you're familiar with the pin tool. Okay, great. It also comes with a poster, and the poster shows all the different parts. And what's great about these, you're familiar with VEX IQ, and I know you spend a lot of time with the poster with the students trying to find that exact piece. You know, how long is it? What's great about this is every single one of those pieces, you'll notice, is a different color. So when students at younger ages are building, they're not looking for that 2-1 pin. They're just looking for a red pin or a green pin or a blue connector. So it's really easy for them to find that exact right part the first time.
I wish all of VEX IQ was colored.
I know, it would make so much easier.
Yes.
Yeah. What's included in the kit? So the field tile and walls, these are a game changer as well, because what you can do is you can build different fields and different ideas. So as with the VEX IQ, you can do it as well, but it's a lot harder because you actually have corner pieces. Whereas with this, you'll notice that the corner piece and the side pieces actually snap right on top. So it's much easier to build something fun, build a little maze or a little challenge. And again, keep the students engaged. And what's great about this is it keeps the robots off the floor, etc. So it keeps them clean. They're always on the same surface. And those squares are great because they can really line up the robots or whatever they're working with to make sure that it's the same every time. It does come with a 5-piece power adapter. So this means that you're not hunting for 10 outlets to be able to charge up the batteries. Off one outlet, you can plug in 5 batteries to charge them up. So that, again, a game changer. I know with VEX IQ, it's always a challenge finding a place to set up all the chargers, have that ready. Whereas with this, it's simply a cable at the end of class, plug all the batteries in, and you're good to go. Next is the VEX Classroom app. So you all know how much fun it is to update the firmware on the VEX IQ. VEX Go has gotten even easier. So what it is, it's an app that you put on your phone. And the nice thing about that is it will find every single robot in the room, and it's one button. You can click update all devices and it will update any of them that need updating. So yep, go ahead.
Wirelessly?
Wirelessly, Bluetooth. The VEX Go doesn't plug in. It's all done wirelessly. All the coding's wirelessly, everything. It's fantastic.
Wait, do they have that for VEX IQ?
No, not yet.
Okay.
They keep saying soon. So you can program the VEX IQ wirelessly with the iPad. They've had that for a while.
Yeah, we're still trying to figure that one out, but yes, good.
Yes. And what's great is you can also rename the devices. So that's important. So whether you want to name, colors, you can just blue, orange, red, and get those colored dots for them, or write the name, fun names, but you can name each one of the robots and you can find it. And then there's also a locate button. And when you hit that locate button, the light on the robot starts to flash orange. So you can say, oh, that's that robot. And now you know which one is which, because obviously you're going to have more than one of these in the classroom. So this is something that just the teacher needs, and you just log into it. Okay, are all my robots online? Are they named and are they updated? Yep, go ahead.
I'm so sorry to keep interrupting because, I'll forget if I don't ask.
That's okay. That's why we're here. This is for you.
So when you say robot, what you mean is really like the robot brain.
Yes, that's correct.
Now, Julie actually has a VEX GO kit. I don't have one physically in front of me, so I don't see it all. But okay. my question is, I did spend, I'm trying to write these grants so that we can make this kind of a school program rather than just a special thing for a select number of kids. And I was looking through the activities and like the units per se, and not all of them really are, number one, I'd say about 50% of them do require coding, I guess. Yep,
that's correct.
And not all of them are like robots per se. Like some of them are like building a mechanical claw, that may not use a motor.
Right. Yes. Okay. That's correct. So the idea here is you can start off with just teaching the basics. So teaching about gearing, teaching about simple things like leverages and pendulums. So you're starting off very basic. Actually, I'm going to jump out of this presentation now because that's as good a time as any. So let me stop sharing so we can go to the camera. Hopefully you can see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this kit. And so there are basically 3 different ways you can power something. So they do it manually, just like you were saying, where the students just grab a lever and move it. Another thing that VEX uses, which we use a lot in IQ and even EDR, is using elastic bands. So you'll notice there's the ones where there's the rubber bands and the wind up. But they also go as simple as giving you just a simple switch. And what's great about these, what I love about this kit is everything is color coded. So you'll see that that's orange and the battery cable's orange, but they actually went through the trouble of making all the connectors different. So if you try to take this orange cable and put it in that green, it physically will not fit. They've really done a good job of making sure that students aren't going to let the smoke out. So we can go as simple as plugging, this is the battery, and we can test the battery by hitting the button, and you'll see 2 green dots means it's fully charged. So easy to check. I can hook a battery to a switch, pull a motor out, plug a motor in, and now using the switch, I can control a motor. So they really have lowered the barrier to being able to build mechanisms and try different things and build all sorts of different ideas and different STEM activities where it's not all about using the brain and the motor. Of course, there is the brain, which we can do coding with. Did you know that you can also drive the robot manually? No. Okay, good. I like it when I get to teach you things. We'll get to that in a minute. All right. Here we go. Share screen. We're back to our PowerPoint, which we are almost through. Where did it go?
You must drive it with the switch?
No, it's really cool. You can actually drive it with the app or with your computer.
Huh.
So there is the software, which we're going to jump into a moment. We've already talked about the STEM labs, so we're not going to go through those. And I know both of you have dug into them extensively, so you understand how those work. So now we're going to talk about the VEX GO challenge. So this is the new classroom learning. So this is great because yes, they're competing, but they're competing in the classroom. And what's great about this is you can compete globally, or you could do a school challenge. You could have class versus class. You could have grade versus grade. You can do this any way you want. And there's the VEX GO Challenge Kit. So we've done our homework and we found out that this field here is roughly 3 feet by 6 feet. And it has 4 different configurations. So there's the VEX GO Mars expedition, and I'm not going to read it all to you, but as you can see, it sets up like this, and then there's the different tasks. So the students can choose which tasks they want to take on. So they can start off with task 1 or task 8, it doesn't matter, and then see how many they can get through. The next one is the VEX competition, Grow a Village. So again, they can choose whichever one of these they want to do. Simple things like lower a bridge so the robot can cross a river, or work on, as many or as few of these as they want. So this is something you could even set up and have set up, and the students come in and, they've got whatever amount of time to build a robot and do a challenge. And Sarah has found out that VEX is going to give us hero robots for the VEX Go, which means you could even have these robots pre-built and have the students come in and either code or drive and just do these challenges. Number 3 is ocean exploration. And again, when we start talking about this, especially when you're writing grants, you can talk about the fact that we are talking real world robotics here. We're talking ocean exploration, we're talking space, and the last one is city rescue. So again, it's clear the road of fallen trees, so using robotics to solve real world problems. So these are the 4 different VEX competitions that they've set up. And what's great about this is not going to change from what we understand. So this is going to be the same competitions every year. So, if you're worried about what about your grade 4s, your grade 3s or grade 4s, your grade 3s do it this year, what are they going to do next year? Maybe you only want to give them 2 of these competitions in grade 3 and 2 of the tougher ones in grade 4, or whichever way you want to do it. As far as, yeah, go ahead.
I'm so sorry. So in the case of those challenges or competitions, it's one field and teams or partners of kids work together to navigate through it. And it would be like, let's say we have a classroom bundle, and how many is that? Like 12 kids?
You got to be careful because it'll say like 12 student bundle, which is only 6 kits.
Okay.
So yeah, I think the classroom,
like 20.
Yes, I believe so. So it's 10 kids.
Yeah. Okay. In which case, then there would be like 10 teams or partnerships, and then so the competition is amongst that.
Right. Exactly. Yes. Okay. So at that point, I don't know whether you'd, try to get funding to have 2 of the field sets, so you could set up 2 different ones, or whether you just do 1. I mean, this is brand new. So I'll be honest, I usually get most of my golden information from teachers working with them. And they say, what, we tried this and it didn't work, or we tried this and it was magical. So this is something where it's still a work in progress and we're kind of learning our way through. But for the information we're getting, the other great part about this is so far we found out that to register your teams or your schools, it's free of charge. So you can actually go online, register them for the VEX Global Challenge, and it is free of charge. And they do have digital badges. So for each level that they complete, they can actually get digital awards and certificates that you can print out or they can keep digitally. So still under development, VEX GO Virtual Skills. So this is similar to the VEX IQ, where they're talking about having virtual skills where they could actually have like competitions and things like that. And then we're waiting, of course, for the coach and event partner guide, the actual game manual, and they are apparently going to be bringing out a scoring app like they have for VEX IQ and VEX V5, where you can actually put in what the students have done and actually see what their score would be, etc. Tips and tricks. So the storage bundles are great because everything fits in the package. And as I mentioned before, what you will need is a way to label the kits. We suggest labeling the batteries and the brain and the kit. That way everything goes together, but especially the brain, because as I'm going to show you now, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to switch to, here we go, the coding solution. So this will look very familiar to you. You've used the VEX IQ one, correct? You've done coding with the VEX IQ. So one thing I was going to mention, I can kind of cover this today. We may not need to meet on Thursday because as you'll notice, the coding is identical to the VEX IQ. It's just a little bit simpler. So to give you an idea of how this connects, I'm just going to grab a battery and a brain and I'm going to plug it in. And you just hit the button on top of the brain. So we've got these connected and you'll see that's actually green. I don't know if it shows up. Oh, there we go, green. Now, if I go to my computer, brain, connect, this is just out of my browser. So I'm just running a Chrome browser in my computer and it says, oh, in this room, I only have one VEX Go, so I can only show you one, but the whole list will show up. So I've named this one VEX GO 7 and I can click pair and it starts flashing so I know which one it is, connecting. And now I'm connected. And you'll also see it tells me what my battery status is at. And if I want to disconnect and connect to another one, it's got the red button. So now I'm connected. If I want to put code into this, I can just click the start and it'll just run the code all wirelessly. We never need to plug these robots in, which is great for the younger kids because I don't want them plugging USBs in and out, in and out, in and out. And I'm sure you don't as well. The other thing I wanted to show you is there is a drive tab here. So you'll notice when we click on that, there's a code tab and there's a drive tab. So the bad part is you'll notice that we have joysticks we can move and I'm moving that with my mouse. The downside is I can't drive a robot in tank mode because I can't control both joysticks at the same time. But if I was on a tablet, now this works on phones, it works on tablets, it works on Android, Amazon tablets and iPads, but even on the computer, you'll notice I can switch to left or right. So I only have one joystick and that will actually allow your students, even using a computer, to now manually drive this robot around. So they do have that same option where you can set up challenges and have them driving the robot around and or coding the robot. And it's as simple as just switching back and forth. So there is the ability, you know, if you could get a hold of a couple phones or a couple tablets or iPads, you could set up a challenge where students come in, and today is driver skills. So one of the things we used to do with the city of Barrie is we used to get the mayor to make up driver's licenses, and the students would come in and do a little challenge. We'd have them drive the robot through a little maze, and we made the robot look like a little mouse, and then we had a yellow piece of cheese. And if they made it to the cheese, they passed their driving test, and we would give them a certificate, which was their robot operator license signed by the mayor for the city of Barrie. So they had a lot of fun. For us, it was a great tool for recruitment and for fundraising, because businesses would see what we were doing and they'd want to invest. And students, that's where we got most of our recruiting from. We had the opposite problem as you. We were a community team, so we had trouble getting enough students, whereas you've got the opposite. You've got too many students. So, yep, you had a question?
Yeah, I've heard, I think in a couple of sessions now, that certain things work better in Chrome. And let me give you a little bit of background. Like, we have iPads at our school, and being that we're an elementary school, our browser is Safari. I don't know if that's the right term for it.
Yep, that's
apparently Chrome is for an older audience of students. So we're not, isn't that right, Julie? We're not allowed to, we don't have like a Chrome app anymore.
For the iPad, there is actually an app you would have to get your admin to put on.
No, the district won't allow. We have Chromebooks, but on an iPad, we cannot put Chrome on it because I think it's for like age 12 or 14 and above, something.
Right.
Your age.
Now, will they allow you? Yep.
It's ridiculous, we say.
And you know what? There's school boards and they all have rules. I was working with a school board out in BC that bought Chrome pads for all of their students and then realized that Google was a US company and it broke their policy because data was being stored in the US, and their IT department had to try to install Microsoft on Chromebooks. So I've seen it all. But for iPad, it's actually an app. So what you would do is you'd have to talk to your IT and see if they would actually install this app on your iPad. And then they don't use a browser, they actually use the app.
Okay.
But again, that's something you've now got to talk to your IT department about. And there's always challenges with that. Some IT departments are great to work with, some are a little more challenging. Another thing I noticed today when I logged in, because again, for the computer, this is just a browser. And what I noticed is they've added a ton of tutorials for VEX GO. I don't know if you remember last time, there were only the 4 tutorials. So now you can see that they've added quite a few more. So that's great. And that's what I like about VEX is they're constantly adding new content, new lessons, etc. So it does make it a lot easier.
Oh, that was my next question, was that will VEX GO be adding more lessons?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
So again, this is a tutorial on how to drive the robot, etc. So they do have all the tutorials and they do have the example programs to go with it as well. So they have added a lot of that. So that is the end of what I've got prepared. Now I just want to open the floor and answer any questions if I can.
I think I know Julie had told me about the competitions that were available in VEX GO, and so that's exciting to me because we were talking about what is it that why do we have so many applicants for our robotics team, and we're not sure if it's really because it's robotics, which I think is a big part of it, but I think it's because they get to compete.
Yes.
It's the competition and the wanting to be like a winner, kind of.
Yes, absolutely. Or even just the fact that they get to go and compete. Because I've seen some robotics teams where they started just as a club. And I've never seen any of the clubs succeed. As soon as they switch it to a competitive team, it's exactly like what you say. They want to compete. They're looking at what the others are doing, and now there's a goal. And especially younger students, they need that carrot. They need that goal at the end. So what am I working towards? If I'm just coding a robot and I'm just going to drive it around, okay, that's boring. But if all of a sudden there's going to be a race where now I've got a race through, all of a sudden it's the excitement. And if somebody can do it faster, the next group wants to do it faster than they did. So it really drives that, that adventure. And now it's fun. Now it's a challenge. So even when I was running my club, even when I was teaching coding or when we did our very first build, I always ended the night with a friendly competition. So even after we would build just the drive base, they'd be broken up into teams and we would do a relay race. So the students would have to drive their robot through and back and then hand the controller to their next team member. And in my group, every team member had to drive. So that was part of team building. Rather than team members saying, no, I'm going to drive because you suck. It's now we've got to teach you how to drive better because we want to win. So it brings them together rather than dividing them. And we would do a relay race and race them all through. And I mean, there were no prizes. It didn't matter who won, but it was just that excitement and that fun. So yes, having the VEX GO competition, and especially having the fact that it's a classroom competition, where as a teacher, you just need to basically run through it and then just go online and say, yes, we've completed this, or here's our answer, etc. And then you can move on to the next stage. So it's really good on that. And they can look at their rankings. They can see what's going on in the world. I was actually on that today. I think I'm still sharing robot events, robot competitions. They actually did run a challenge this year. Let me just see if it'll show up. And as you can see, we've already got 2 teams registered for this year. And I know what the problem is. I didn't go last year. Last year, there were 80 teams registered. So again, yeah, exactly. And considering we couldn't even get the kits, yeah, I think that's why. If I go back to last season, so again, spots 10,000, but there's your list of teams. And you can see that some of these schools, this school in Florida, they just registered, probably their entire school. They broke them up into teams and there they are. So, just go in, register your teams. And now there's a leaderboard. I don't know if it shows up. Did we get awards? So awards have not been sent out. But again, they're going to build a leaderboard. They can see where they're ranking in the world as well. So even though they might have beat everybody in their class or everybody in your school, they can now look at the world leaderboard and say, you know what, we want to do better. Or, you know what, we're happy being 99th in the world, whatever they decide. But it just gives them that option. Are there any questions about the VEX Go, about the coding platform? Did I answer your questions about writing the grant?
Yeah, I think so. I did apply for my first grant, so we'll see how
Excellent.
that goes.
You're not. Are you allowed to get outside funding? Like, can you get corporate sponsorship?
Can we get corporate sponsorship?
Some school boards are wide open, other ones are no. The reason I ask is I ran a community team, but we also ran events in the area. And 99% of our funding came from the innovation branches of the city and the county. So the Barrie Business Association has the, what do they call it? Basically their job is, it was Develop Barrie. So their job is to go out to companies, like they were trying to get Toyota to move their head office to Barrie. They're trying to get big companies to bring their business to Barrie so that Barrie can say, you know what, we've got higher paying jobs here. That's their entire job. But in order for them to pitch to a company like Toyota or Honda or anything, they've got to show that they've got the workforce. Because when you go out and talk to businesses, they say their hardest part is finding good employees. So one of their strategies was to get things like robotics up and running. So they actually would sponsor us every year. And when we ran events, they would cover our table rentals and our venue rentals and all of our costs so that we could actually recoup the money from the event for our clubs. So if you're allowed, most schools won't let you actually go out and get sponsorship from specific businesses, but if it's something from, the local development area, etc., from the government, things like that, a lot of the times they're happy to help because this is something that they need in their sales pitch to say, you know what, our schools are teaching robotics and they're starting at grade 3. So that by we're going to have a steady stream of students that are coming through the program that are going to be interested in STEM. They're going to be ready for high-tech jobs. So this is where you want your business to be because you're going to get, the workforce you need. So there's lots of different ways, to spin it.
No, thank you. Thank you. Wish us luck.
Yes. It's really hard getting started. The nice thing about VEX, and you've probably noticed that with VEX IQ, is once you get started and once you have the kits, it's not so hard because everything's reusable. So you get to reuse it year after year after year. But just getting out of the gate, that first, the first bundle of VEX GO kits, that's really the challenge. And I don't know, what the funding is with your school and, with your school board, your administration. It's really baffling to me that some schools seem to have no funding and other schools. I was working with a gentleman last week and he's got a budget of $1.1 million for his high school to put together the shop program. And, he's talking, I've got teachers that are writing grants to get one 3D printer. And he's like, yeah, give me a quote for 20 3D printers. And I just don't understand, how same schools, even in same districts, are just on different ends of the spectrum. So I don't know how it works or why it works, but it's definitely a challenge.
Well, you'll know when we've received the grant because
our district.
Wait, sorry, Julie, you were saying?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh no, I said you all at iDESIGN will know because if we do get a grant, then we'll be placing an order.
Was Julie asking a question? I got kind of glitchy.
I think so. Maybe she's typing in the chat.
Oh, okay, perfect. Ah, yes. The joys of internet. All right, so do you have any more questions?
Julie, do you have any questions? No, no, I think we're signed up for your next workshop on this Thursday as
Right.
well.
So my question would be, all I was going to do was basically go over how to code the VEX GO Robot. So I was going to build the code robot and show you how it works. Is that something you still need, or would it be very repetitive? I mean, it's basically the same as VEXiQ with some simpler stuff, and it's just a matter of start. I'm more than happy to
I
run
think
it.
good.
I just didn't want it. I mean, for you that have been doing VEXiQ, I think it would be pretty boring. So that's why in this lesson, I showed you how easy it is to connect. And then once you're connected to the robot, you just basically send it. The difference between the VEX GO and the VEXiQ is on the VEX GO, you don't actually send your code to the robot. The browser or the device actually sends the commands one at a time. So it's actually, the code is actually running on your computer. So if I do drive forward for 100 millimeters, turn right, rather than sending this code to your robot and then allowing you on your robot to press run, the code is actually in the browser. So when I hit this start button, it'll say to the robot, okay, drive forward 100 millimeters. And when the robot says, okay, I'm done, then it'll say, okay, now turn right for 90 degrees.
Let's see.
So there's no, that's why you'll see there's no slots. There's no, it doesn't actually download to the robot. It just sends it the commands as is needed. So it always has to be connected. You can't put your code in the robot and then take your robot somewhere else and run it. It has to be connected, and you have to have a Wi-Fi connection as well to be able to run the code, because it actually, that's how it connects, or sort of Bluetooth.
So if the Wi-Fi is not good, then it won't.
Correct.
Oh, so it needs good Wi-Fi.
That's right. Yes, I ran into this. I got a frantic call from a lady at a summer camp who was running her summer camp outside, where they didn't have Wi-Fi and nothing would work. And they ended up picking up camp and moving it closer to the building. And then all of a sudden everything worked. So that's how I found out about it. She says, it works fine in my classroom, but it won't work outside. And it was like, oh. So yeah, just things to know. So if you are going to do it in the gym or somewhere, or if you're, I don't know if your school does any outreach where you go out into the community, just make sure if you're going to take the VEX GO, make sure you do have a good Wi-Fi connection.
Okay. That's good to know.
Yes, good information. Absolutely.
So was that basically VEX GO coding right there in a nutshell?
That's pretty much it. I mean, they've got a new command here, drive forward until. I can make this bigger. So this is allowing the students to use sensors. So until it sees an object, or it has the accelerometer, so until it crashes into something. But aside from that, it's the same. Drive forward, turn left, turn right. There is the electromagnet. So you've got the magnet booster drop, which is actually identical to the VEXcode VR. And then you've got all the same loops. You've got a few more same sensors. You've got a bumper switch. You've got a distance sensor, and that's it. So yeah, this is pretty much.
So we've never worked with those kinds of, like, the green, like the conditionals.
Right.
We've done VEXiQ for I think 3 years now, but we are not like programmers, at all. I mean, very basic in that. And so we are signed up for that workshop. Absolutely. Because all of those operations, like, I have no idea what that means. And, that's like math, which,
it is math. Yes. And again, the ones we usually use, greater than, less than, that kind of stuff, all of that I'm actually going to be teaching when we do our advanced coding, because you'll need it, but I will be going through it step by step and explaining it. So then that'll be a great introduction into the green, the operators. But I'll be honest with you, unless you're really getting into some advanced coding, I've seen teams that are world champions doing their coding without using any operators. It's more of something that's there more for the classroom. But we do use them in our code where we teach the robot to drive straight. So you'll get a good introduction to them there.
Oh, can I ask while we're there, you had mentioned VEX VR. We started meeting with our team, we've met just once so far and given
Mhm.
them the assignment to just like, I think you mentioned draw a small square, now make that bigger, and then, have they use a loop and things like that.
Right.
The VEX VR robot has virtually, it has a gyro in it, right? That's why it's able
Yes.
to do things. Okay.
Right.
Is there
So now,
any, oh, yes?
if you add the gyro onto your VEX IQ robot, it will actually work exactly the same.
Okay, so we don't know how to use gyros, but that's why we're coming to that. that.
Right. Yes. So I'll teach you how to use the gyro as well, because that will solve a lot of your problems.
Oh, yes.
Because it'll actually measure how far it's turning. Without it, you'll find that the robot turns a little bit different amount every time. The students get really frustrated. So yes. Yeah, the nice thing about the VR robot is it does have all the sensors built in.
Mhm.
See them at the top here. So it does have that ability. And because it's virtual, it's programmed to do the same thing every time. So it's much easier for the students because the robot will do the same thing. And that's where we need to teach them coding a physical robot in the real world is a little bit different because they don't listen as well. And that's where I've got the 2 coding coming up. I've got the intro to VEX IQ, and then I've got VEX IQ coding and then VEX IQ advanced coding. So the advanced one is definitely worthwhile because I will teach you about the operators, but I'm also going to teach you how to program a robot to drive straight no matter what gets in its way.
And you had also mentioned that because we work with drivetrains, but you said more advanced teams would actually not use a drivetrain.
Right. Yes. So the way it works, I don't have a VEX IQ robot here, I apologize, but when you're driving your robot, you've got a left motor and a right motor. And that's how you steer. So if you want to turn, your right motor goes forward, your left motor goes backwards. Or if you're driving and you want to turn slightly, it slows one side down. And that's the code that I'm going to teach you to write, where it uses the gyro to know which way it's heading, and then it'll slow one side down and speed one side up to get the robot back on course all on its own. So you're
So if we
basically
wanted to turn 45 degrees, it will make an exact 45 degrees.
Yes, and it'll stay on that course even if something's in its way. Because it's measuring it. So it's the same as you driving down the road. You're driving down the road and you see those lines and you're heading that way. And if the wind comes and pushes you off a bit, you turn that steering wheel and you keep the car where it's going. But we don't have a steering wheel in our robot. We've got motors that we need to speed up or slow down to turn. So it's the exact same as what you would do, but instead of turning, think of when you turn that your right hand is the motor speed on this side and your left hand is the motor speed on that side. And as you turn, right, if you want to turn left, I should actually stop sharing so you can actually see a little better. As you want to turn left, which is backwards in the camera, but you want to turn left, you're going to slow down your left motor and speed up your right motor. And if you want to turn right, you're going to slow down your right motor, speed up your left motor. And that's exactly what we do with the code. And rather than us being able to see, we simply look at the gyro. So if the gyro says the gyro will tell us degrees or negative degrees, that's our left and right. So if the gyro says we're off by 3 degrees, we know we're off to the right. And what we're going to do is we're going to steer to the left until that gyro goes back to 0. And what's great about it is because it's being processed so quickly, the robot reacts ridiculously fast. And it also works in the way where, depending on how far it's off course, is how fast it reacts to get back to it. So it does work very, very well. And what you'll be able to do is code your robot to drive the entire length of the field in a straight line, which is something that when you show your students, they're going to love it. And what's great is, yes, you still need to code your robot using separate motors, but they'll never actually code their robot that way, because I'm going to teach you how to build an algorithm where now they can just take one block and put in how far they want to go, how fast they want to go, and that robot will go that distance or that turn. So it actually is going to make their coding a lot easier, similar to the drivetrain block. So it's not something where they're going to be saying, okay, I need to turn 45 degrees. Okay, set my left motor to that, my right motor to that. We actually build it all into an algorithm. And an algorithm is just a fancy word for a set of rules. So we're going to build a set of rules that the robot will follow and make it so that they can pull out one block and tell the robot where to go. It's really cool. It's really fun. And it'll be a little bit overwhelming in the beginning, but once you see it in action, you'll be like, this is it. And I'll also send you the actual code that you can show to your students. And once they get that code loaded and try it out, they'll be like, this is the bomb. So it's a game changer.
Great. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Right.
So if there's no more questions, I think we're done for today. All right.